Welcome to the Triple D Podcast, Donuts, Disability, and Discourse, where host Michael Liner talks to the best in the business about community, impact, business, and donuts. Here's your host, Michael Liner.
Welcome to the next edition of the Triple D Podcast, Disability, Donuts, and Discourse. We're excited to be back for another episode of the show. We're here at Corbo's Bakery in Little Italy in Cleveland, a place that I love, and I'm with someone who I love, Dr. Brad Hylan, who is a good friend, a professional mentor, somebody that I really look up to, even though he's in a different profession than me. But one thing that I've found over the course of time is that some of the best influences that I have professionally are people who aren't necessarily other lawyers. And I'm excited to have you with us here today, Brad, and to talk a little bit about your experiences and continue some of the conversations that we have that are unrecorded. Just this time the film is rolling. But just to give you a second, can you maybe introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your dental practice?
So I started Hylan Dental Care in October of 1979, and I started on Forest Hills Boulevard in East Cleveland, Ohio. I bought two practices and I merged them together, and that's where it all started. It's been a lot of fun.
And do you still have an office in East Cleveland?
No, we sold that years ago, and what I did was I wanted to own the building, and the building was not for sale. I found a building on the west side of Cleveland that seemed to be appropriate, and we wound up buying that in 1980.
And you've been there ever since?
We have, and we have two additional offices, and we're looking to continue to expand.
And one of the things that I am interested in that I wanted to ask you about is you talk about the additional offices that you have. So tell us about the area that surrounds your main office.
So our main office is in the city of Cleveland. We're by West 117th and Lorraine, and it's a phenomenal neighborhood. It's just it's what I think of when I think of America. It's hardworking people, and it's been a great neighborhood over the years.
And your other offices are more in suburban locations?
Correct. So we have an office in Fairview Park, which borders Rocky River, and that's a suburban area. And then we also have an office in Brecksville, which is kind of a fancy area. And the people are great in all the offices. Yeah. I love them. So
tell me about what it's like when you're running a business that serves so many different communities. So, you talked about the main office, which is in the city of Cleveland. Working class, a patient that you're seeing there. But then you also have this practice that's in Brecksville, which, like you mentioned, that's a nicer, fancier area is the word that you used. How do you make it so that, your office systems, the dental practice itself, everything stays uniform throughout, or is there diversification even in the services that you find that you offer?
We use systems. The systems are the same whether you're in Cleveland, Fairview Park, or Brecksville. Years ago, I kind of thought about things, and I never felt that I was all that fast of a practitioner. Okay, in fact, it felt slow, even though in reality it wasn't. And so what I did was I came up with systems, and the systems just kind of run the office. And we could actually bring people in that have had no experience ever working in a dental office. They can set up a treatment room. They can place a supply order. I like to systematize things. It also improves our quality control.
And have you found that the response from the patients is the same across all offices?
Yeah, so what I talk about is it's all about the relationship.
Yeah.
The relationship is the most important thing. It's more important than the treatment. Because if you don't have a relationship, it's like if I go to a doctor and I don't feel like I connect with the person, I don't want to have anything to do. So what I really kind of train people to do is I think we have to be great listeners. And we have to be open that it's not... My job is to make the diagnosis, tell you what we find. My job is not to tell you what you need. My job is to be your guide and to help you figure out what's going to work best for you.
It's so interesting that you say that because, a lot of times, and I hear this more so when people are talking about doctors, where they'll say, oh, so-and-so is the best cardiac surgeon, or so-and-so is the best family doctor there is. And I always want to say to them, how do you know?
How do you
Like
know?
what makes them the best? And really what I think it is, it's not about their prescribing medications different. They're not doing their physical exams different.
Right.
It's so much about the bedside manner and how they make you feel about yourself.
100%.
And bringing that back into the legal realm, we have people who shop us all the time. They'll call the office. They'll go on our website. They'll intersect with us in some way that they end up reaching out to us. And when they say, why should I hire you over another law firm? And my answer is usually, well, why did you call me in the first place?
Right.
And usually it has to do with not about hearing how, I'm more technical and I'm cross-examining a vocational expert, or we do a better job of putting together medical evidence for Social Security than other. It's about, well, this person said that you were a really good guy.
Yeah.
Which has nothing to do with
it.
law to begin with. And so it's the human experience that really separates people.
I think people don't really care how much we know. They want to know how much we care. And I think it's kind of assumed if you have your dental license, you're going to have a certain skill level. Now, when I graduated from school, that was just the beginning of education for me. But how can somebody really judge a dentist unless they're another dentist? And how can they judge an attorney? Because I don't think they can. They just want to know that you really care.
Yeah. And it's interesting because in that sense where really the human element is the most important element, and being able to demonstrate that you care, it's not about my, somebody having 37 years practicing dentistry. The bedrock for them being considered the best was there right when they started, because it's almost inherent traits that either you have or you don't have.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
Now, with 3 offices, I imagine you have a large staff.
A little bit.
How many people do you have working for you across offices?
I'm not really sure, 25, 30, 35 people.
Okay. And
we outsource some stuff too.
Okay. I'm curious to learn a little bit about how you run things in terms of, you talked about the importance of systems, and I'm sure that extends, whether you're the person who's greeting a patient when they come in or you're the dentist, doing checkups themselves.
So I think the 2 most important things we can do are marketing and training. And I've spent so much time with training, and people say I'm just really patient. And I just train. Every day is like a training day. And what I tried to do was I tried to set up a system so that people could be successful. So if I were training you as a dental assistant, we actually have on our computer monitor, we have a picture set up of how we want the treatment room set up. And you just see a picture. Say, here's the mirror, and then here's another instrument. You just set it down that way. And I was just really patient. And I think that most people, if you give them a good system, they're able to do it. So the training has absolutely been the crucial thing to make things work.
Where do the systems in the training materials come from? Does it mostly come from you or other leaders in the office, or are you listening to the person who's greeting patients at the front and taking input from them on how they think things should be structured?
McDonald's.
Yeah.
So what I did, I'd look at McDonald's. I just watched how they do things, and what I would do is, I don't know if you've heard of Six Sigma or
yes.
So what I would do is, a lot of times I just sit there and I'd watch people move. It's like, okay, they just made 10 different movements. Okay, when if I could do it in 2 or 3, and so I would set things up to put everything within reach, and that was actually how I sped up my productivity. So I went from feeling very slow to probably one of the top producers maybe in the country, and it wasn't because I was rushing. In fact, I got a book by John Wooden, who was the coach of UCLA,
Sure.
and the book that I got was called Be Quick But Don't Hurry. When you start hurrying, you start making mistakes. I don't want to hurry, okay? So, that was a crucial book, but what I did was the training. I just spent hours and hours and hours of training, and usually the response that I get from people that come to our office is like, wow, I've never had anybody this good, and it was just the training.
Do you revisit your systems and training and how you're doing it, or at this point has it just been perfected over time that it's not something you feel like you need to keep coming back to?
No, I don't feel like we need to keep coming back to it. So when we hire people, we could look through 100 resumes before we find somebody really good, and we really just. My best investment has been in our staff. Okay, so the staff, they then have the authority to make changes. In other words, I train them, and don't ask me, about that. Just handle it, and if somebody makes a mistake, I don't get upset. Okay, what would get me upset is a bad attitude. Okay, to make mistakes, I mean, you're human. I make mistakes. We all make mistakes, but bad attitude, you can't train that.
So we have we call it the Warriors Handbook in our office, and that's our systems manual for everything that we do. And at the very top of it is a letter that I wrote to anybody in our office, and it says you have permission to make mistakes.
Yep.
Don't be a problem reporter. I'm entrusting you to be a problem solver.
Yep.
As long as you report to me how you solved something, right, that's what I want to know.
Yep.
Because at the beginning, people would come to me for every little detail, right, but then as you scale and grow, you just don't have enough hours in the day to deal with every little problem. But then when you empower people and say, listen, you wouldn't be here if I didn't think you were smart. If I thought that you couldn't do this job, I would have hired the other person. So I am trusting that I made a good decision and that you're intelligent enough to do what I'm asking you to do. But just let me, if you feel like a judgment call has to be made, just tell me after. Tell me how you solved it. But let me know quick, because then sometimes, I would say 99 out of 100 times, the person in my office handled it exactly the way that I would want them to. But that one time, we can fix it as long as it happens fast.
So I have to tell you a funny story. I hadn't been into the office for a while, and I trained the staff, and they kind of knew how I worked. I came in. Our office is in 2 buildings, hooked together in Cleveland.
Right.
So I came in, and they replaced the dental equipment. So I had invented this system, and they took it to the next level. So it's like I came in, it's like, whoa, man. It's like, but I said, this is better than what I had. I mean, they thought about what was needed, and they spent, I don't know how many thousands and thousands, and that was totally fine. And had it not been okay, I wouldn't have liked it, but they handled it marvelously.
Yeah, and I love hearing that. It shows that your staff knows that they have your permission to dream and to think.
Yes.
And I think that as leaders in an office, that's the most important thing that we can do. Like you're saying, in my office, the reality is my day-to-day work life, I'm not, handling new client intakes every day.
Right.
I'm not filing appeals online for our clients. My job is to run the office, work with Katie and do our marketing. My job is I do many hearings because it's still something that I'm passionate about and I enjoy doing. But for all the other tasks, why would I take this top-down approach like I know better than the person who's doing it every day? Because I don't know what the flaws in our system are. I'm not experiencing them.
So, that actually is making me think about something else, like in the military. So in the military, they have the general, and his thing is the big overall vision, but then they have the infantry people, and then they have the demolition people, and each of those people are experts in their particular area. So I have these assistants and doctors that are working together, and they know the vision, and they solve the problem. And I know a lot of doctors would have flipped out coming in, seeing new equipment installed, knowing that thousands of hours have been spent, but I was totally fine with it.
Now, you've talked a little bit about the technology in your office and some of the. You actually invented some dentist equipment.
I did.
Tell us about that.
So it goes back to the Six Sigma, or the economy of motion. And so what I would watch is, in your traditional dental office, they have cabinets along the side and cabinets in the back, and nobody knows where anything is. And I watch people work, and I've gone into offices, I know what I'm looking for, and I can't even find it. And somebody says, well, it's over there. It's like, where? So what I did was I came up with a system where everything was within sight and within reach, and we had a 29% jump in our productivity just by being more efficient in our movements. I mean, that was huge. I mean, so
wow.
So that could instantly turn into the $250,000 a year difference or more, and you're not rushing. In fact, if anything, I was going slower.
So you didn't change your marketing to
No,
adjust
no.
that. You didn't change anything else other than making it so that the tools that your staff needed
Yes.
to reach, they could quickly find.
Yeah.
And wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's huge. And so I wound up selling the equipment to other doctors, and I had no intentions of making something to sell to other doctors. But actually, the dental school case wound up using it. The orthodontic department, they actually named it like kind of a wing up after us in the old section. And yeah, just time motion studies.
Now,
That's kind of how my brain works. So.
how have you seen tech? Besides the technology that you yourself created,
Right.
how have you seen technology change dentistry, and how have you adapted to it?
So the stuff I used when I was in school doesn't exist anymore. It just doesn't. I would have never thought that there would be something called a digital X-ray that we could then send around the world and view. And years ago, well, actually it was 2013. I was in Chicago. I was listening to Dr. Jay Resnick, who's an oral surgeon from Los Angeles. And they were talking about 3D X-rays. Those are basically CAT scans. And he's talking about how he had golden hands and he was like this amazing dentist, but the technology was surpassed his skill. And so at that point in time, it was in 2013, I said, I've got to have this technology because it just takes things to a whole different level. Years ago, we used to make measurements of people's teeth with impression material. It's like this goop that you put in people's mouth. And we now do it digitally. We use this laser scanner, and it measures it, and it's superior to what we could do by hand. We're going to wind up using AI to read X-rays. AI is artificial intelligence.
Right.
So when you're reading a digital X-ray, all it is little pixels on a computer monitor. What you can do is program in your parameters, and it will read it better and faster than a person can. And they're using it in hospitals, and it's just a matter of time we will use that. And then also something else that I'm thinking about, and that is banking stem cells. So we had that. The doctors, they just weren't doing much with it. When you take out a wisdom tooth, it is loaded with stem cells. When you take out a baby tooth, it's loaded with stem cells. And so what's done is you can send that to the lab, and I can tell you that in our lifetime, we'll probably be regrowing teeth. So dental implants I could just see, the teeth can be regrowing now. I don't know if you remember, there was that lamb, Dolly, that they cloned a lamb. It's just a matter of time. We will be able to regrow teeth. The teeth that are being regrown now anatomically are not ideal. It'll happen in our lifetime. We'll be able to regrow teeth.
So what's your approach to technology? Do you kind of sit back and wait to see how it's implemented in other places, or are you the one who raises your hand and wants to jump in first?
I'm not first, but I'll say I'm second.
Okay.
Okay. I want to see just a little bit when it comes to dental implants. Okay. Right now, somebody has a tooth removed, and that implant can be put in the day that tooth is removed if it's the right situation. What I can see happening, and it will happen, and it's going to happen not just in dentistry but in medicine, I can see doing a 3D CAT scan of the person's jaw. And so as long as they have an implant, when a person has an implant, it's made up of three parts. There's the root, there's the abutment, which goes on top of the implant, and then there's the crown. The crown is the part that we see. The implant replaces the root. I could see ultimately doing a scan and then custom making an implant that will exactly reproduce the person's tooth that's there, as opposed to having a screw off the shelf to put in for an implant.
So I hear you talking about all this technology and the change, and there's a question that I've always wanted to ask you, but I don't think I've ever asked you, which is, at this point, I know that you've done well for yourself, and you're at a point now where there's no way you're working for any reason other than you want to.
I want to.
So my question is, what makes you wake up every day excited for this? What motivates you?
I still have a lot of dreams. I mean, what I'd like to do, I think that for Hylan Dental Care, we offer top quality of care. I mean, when I did years ago when we were doing gold, I did a gold inlays for my wife. And that was over 40 years ago. We're good. We're really good. And I think the reason why we're so good is like I'm always learning. when I got started in practice, I'd lay in bed at night. I'd have a flashlight under my chin. I'd be reading books in bed, and it's fascinating. It is. So I love being a dentist, and if I wasn't a dentist, I'd be a plastic surgeon. I'm glad I'm a dentist. I tell our daughter Jessica, who's an orthodontist, the highest form of artwork is the human body. And when somebody trusts you enough to allow you to work on them, it is an incredible compliment, and it's an honor, and I take it very seriously. And it's just, I love the art of dentistry.
And it sounds like you're in this pursuit of perfection and finding ways to do it better and better and better, and just keep improving everything in your surroundings.
So I had a friend, his name is Daryl Bass, and he would talk about the Zen of dentistry.
Yeah.
That he'd always try to do that perfect preparation of a tooth. Now, it doesn't exist, but you can still try. And when I think of a Zen master, you hear stories about a Zen master going out, it's pitch dark at night, he paces off 100 yards, he then shoots an arrow backwards through the bullseye, and then he splits the next arrow. You can't achieve perfection, but that's the goal, and it's fun trying to do as good a job as you can. I want to say one other thing, too.
Yeah.
So talking about that, I would do root canals, okay? And in an ideal situation with a root canal, you'd have, a root canal is a filling that goes in the root of a tooth. And in the ideal situation, you put that filling about 1 millimeter from the end of the root of the tooth. And sometimes I'd put it like maybe 1.5 millimeters, and it looked great. And I say to the assistant, I want to refill. She goes, Dr. Hylan, looks great. Why are you doing that? I said, because I'll sleep better at night, knowing that I did my very best.
Do you ever see yourself stopping?
No, never. I have no desire to stop. The day I stop, I'm in trouble.
How has and I don't know if this is an example of this, but you mentioned how there was a period of time where you weren't even in the office for a while. You showed up and they had rearranged and changed the technology on you. How has what you do every day changed over time? What do you see your role as in the business?
Supplying the vision. I am always trying to look at the cutting edge things. And so what I just was looking at yesterday was something called digital smile design. And so we can digitally, right now we're using outsourcing into the lab, but we can digitally create a beautiful smile for you before we do anything. When we do implants, we digitally do the surgery before we actually come to your mouth. Now, I don't know, I'm going to assume a lot of people, I'm sure they don't do that. But when we're creating a smile for you, I think that it's very important that you see the smile and make sure you like the shape of the teeth, you like the color. It's important that you see the result before anybody even touches your teeth.
I love that. I love that. Well, speaking of things touching teeth, we are, as I mentioned, we're here at Corbo's in Little Italy, and they have been kind enough to provide us with a few delicious pastries for us to sample, and I want to share this with you, Dr. Brad, if you want to. I know this is not on your diet.
Right, but that's okay.
For today, you can have you can have one bite.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, Mike, these are phenomenal.
This is,
wow.
This is, each one of these weighs about a pound.
Should we grab a napkin so we don't...
I think we better. That's good thinking. Give you a few. I'll take some for myself.
Wow.
This is the...
Then I have something to say when I'm done with the bite.
Well, let's taste this. Here we go.
This could be When Harry Met Sally. You know about When Harry Met Sally?
Yeah. This may be one of the most delicious things I've ever tasted in my life. It is soaked in rum,
it's
clearly, with the delicious filling from their cannolis and chocolate chips into a pastry. It's exquisite. I wouldn't expect anything else from Corbo's Bakery, but we got plenty of napkins. They've got them here for good reason.
So actually what I want to say related to dentistry. Years ago there was a PhD researcher by the name of Gerard Judd. He studied cavities. And what he found, this was a study over like thousands of people, the people that actually take a sip of water when they're eating, they wash the sugar off their teeth, they wash the acid off. So if you do something occasionally, it's not really going to hurt you. I'm not going to take a sip of water now. However, as a general habit, when you're done eating, it's not a bad idea. Just take a little water and swish it around in your mouth. According to Dr. Judd's research, you're going to have less cavities.
There you go. Little dentistry tip thrown in here. We're learning all about business today, and now we know how to take better care of our teeth. Well, I am so grateful that you took your time to come down here and talk to me and share some of your history and your knowledge, and I look forward to learning from you for many years ahead. And
I learned from you too.
Well, thank you.
It's synergistic.
Yeah. Well, we're going to keep on going.
All right.
So
don't ever retire.
Dr. Brad Hylan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Triple D Podcast, Donuts, Disability, and Discourse. Rate, subscribe, and tune in next week for more Discourse and Donuts.